Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Bookends of Recovery. This is Laura, and I'm so glad that you're here. Deciding that you're going to quit using your DOC, your drug of choice, is a major decision. And if that's something that you decided to do, maybe to start off your new year, this is going to be a great podcast for you because I'm going to be sharing some, essential first steps along with some tools for your recovery toolkit, along with different approaches that you can take for your journey because there is no one way to approach your recovery. There's your way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I understand, especially when this comes out, that you may be feeling some stress and it can feel overwhelming, maybe a little bit scary. I don't want you to feel all of that. I mean, of course, it's going to be inevitable that you're going to feel some of that. But there should also be a sense of hope and promise too. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to take a look at different approaches that you can take and maybe alleviate some of that tension that you could possibly be feeling. So whether you are quitting drugs, alcohol, pornography, shopping, gambling, any kind of unhealthy behavior, I believe that you'll be able to get some help with this or from this podcast. So let's get started. The first thing I want you to do, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I want you to take a moment to acknowledge and celebrate yourself. I get it. But we don't take enough time out of our days and pat ourselves on the back. As cheesy as it sounds, mark the date that you decided to make positive change for yourself. You can put it on your calendar and use that as a way to celebrate yourself. I mean, you can go, if you want, you can go ahead and go out and get a sticker or a star, get creative if you want. I'm someone who loves colorful, things now. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but when I see bright things, they kind of make me happy. And so, go out and get yourself, go to a big box store. It doesn't have to be expensive. Go to the dollar store. Get something that will inspire you and help you remember. It can be even something on your phone and just mark it down. No worries if you don't have the calendar. Get something off of Canva. It's free. And just, mark that day of change. If you're concerned about marking a calendar and then having a setback, it's okay because setbacks happen sometimes. So you can mark your calendar again with a new start date and then know that you still have all the knowledge that you learned up until that time. Like you never lose that. That knowledge stays with you. And if you're someone who's like, I'm so nervous about, marking the days, then don't mark the day. If that puts too much pressure on you, don't mark the day. But I do want you to acknowledge the fact that you've started this journey. Celebrate that fact. You have got to get in the habit of rewarding yourself. The more we acknowledge our wins, no matter how small they are, the more our brain gets used to celebrating and traveling down positive pathways. I'm going to use my favorite word sooner or later, malleable. I love that word. So, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to encourage our brain to go down these positive pathways because, you're a superstar. And the only way that you're going to remember how amazing you are is by continuing to celebrate yourself. So, as I said, your journey is going to be as unique as you are. I mean, mine was all over the place. And that was over, I just marked 33 years in November. And so you want to make sure that however you do your approach in your recovery is that you're doing it safely. So let's talk about some of the approaches that you can use. The first one we'll begin with is harm reduction. This is a transformative approach to recovery. It's actually a movement that was started under the Biden administration, and it's one that understands that people who struggle with substance abuse need compassion and empathy first and foremost. It understands that people need life-saving tools and information versus being shamed for having a disease. It focuses on minimizing the negatives, and it understands that not everyone is ready or able to stop using right away. And so it provides the person with tools like medication-assisted treatment or safe injection sites, needle exchange programs. It teaches people on how to reduce their use. And so we must be mindful that any positive change is considered progress. And so rather than focusing on completely stopping under this approach, we realize that we're going for a positive change. And I think that using this kind of a mindset, it helps people understand that you don't have to be perfect. That's not the goal. Because I think a lot of times people think, well, I've had a setback, I've had a slip, and now they spiral into a shame cycle. And that stops them from trying again. So rather than trying to be 100% perfect, we look at it and go, no. You get up and you try again. You keep going. Dust yourself off, figure out what happened so we can see if we can stop it from happening again, and we keep moving forward because this is a disease. Another approach that you've probably heard of is California Sober. And this is a recovery lifestyle approach that when someone chooses to abstain from using a harmful or addictive substance while continuing to use quote unquote safer substances, whether that's recreationally or therapeutically. And there is some debate in the recovery community about this approach. I've run up against it myself. But I do believe in people doing what works best for them because only they know themselves. It's just like harm reduction. Like you know what works best for you. And I look at it as a moderated form of sobriety because it's based on personal boundaries and preferences, and it's one that I use myself. I've talked about it when I talked about the 3 circles, where I don't use any kind of stimulants, but like on Christmas this year, I had family in town, and so I allowed myself to have 2 drinks. Actually, I didn't finish the second drink, but I was like, okay, this is the one time of year that I'll drink. And so I know I have awareness, and I've never struggled with alcohol. So that's where I consider myself to be California sober. Another approach is what is under harm reduction, which is medication assisted treatment, or MAT. And this approach uses medications that are approved by the FDA in combination with things like counseling and behavior therapy. And your therapist can offer group sessions, so you can have the added benefit of support, like from your peers. And these are people who understand what you're going through. And then these medications help regulate your brain and also help curb your cravings. So if that's something you're interested in, there are counselors out there that can prescribe these medications for you. Things to help you curb those cravings, from opioids and alcohol, like methadone or things like that. The other thing is, maybe if you're struggling a bit deeper and you want to go like into residential or inpatient treatment, one of the great things about this approach is it begins from the moment you walk through the door, and it goes on until the day you leave. So if you need to detox, this is a really good approach for you. And these programs can last anywhere from 30 to 90 days. It's done in a controlled environment where the residents participate in therapy. They learn about their triggers. So that's really informative, because a lot of people don't quite understand what triggers them, how to either avoid their triggers or manage their triggers. And they do that while they're away from their stressors of their environment. And then they have the support of not just their peers, but also therapists. And this is the really good environment for those struggling with either severe addiction or co-occurring mental health disorders, because you can work on everything all at the same time. And then you have IOP, which is intensive outpatient programs. And this approach is really good for someone who needs a little bit more flexibility than inpatient offers. So you get to still live at home, but you can still attend scheduled therapy and support groups with your peers. And it's a great alternative for someone who needs to continue maybe to go to work or school, but you're struggling with, like a moderate level addiction. And this also like allows you to create an opportunity to learn how to balance life, and responsibilities while you're also working on your recovery. Something that helped me tremendously was CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And for the majority, and I'm saying majority, not all, of those struggling with addiction, there's a thought pattern that needs to be changed for us to move away from the negative and towards the positive. CBT helps you identify and change those negative thought patterns and behaviors. It helps you identify triggers. It provides you with healthy coping mechanisms, and it helps you discover problem-solving skills. And while I'm not biased on any approach someone takes, this is the one that helped me achieve emotional sobriety and also heal from not just my betrayal trauma, but also from the trauma that I went through being abused as a child. So I think that's why I'm so, I was going to say into it, but I think that's why I'm so, I lean so much towards it. There's also trauma-informed care, and this approach understands that some of us, present company included, may have experienced that trauma. And so it prioritizes our emotional safety, like I was just saying about, being abused. And so it knows that we need to have a feeling of trust and safety, but also feel empowered during our recovery. So finding the right therapist, it's crucial. So if you've ever had any kind of experiences like that, try to find someone who has experience with like EMDR or, like I said, CBT, DBT, somatic experience. And then they should be able to help you in a space of non-judgment, and they should be able to help you heal. Of course, most of you listening, I'm sure, have heard of 12 steps like AA or NA, SAA. They were helpful to me on my journey when I started going through my emotional sobriety journey. If you're not familiar with them, they are a peer-based group, and they share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. The first step is acknowledging that you're powerless over your addiction, and then you turn it over to a higher power, whatever that may mean to you. And then you work through your steps with a sponsor's help, which means, making amends. And this is a really great way to build a community. So if you don't have a community, 12 steps is a really great way to find one. Like I said, that's where I heard about emotional sobriety. But then there are other groups like, secular recovery programs. And this would be something like Smart Recovery, which I'm also in. And these are non-spiritual alternatives to 12-step meetings. So they take a more evidence-based approach where they believe, like I do, that people have the power to change through self-awareness and practical tools. They are also peer-based, and they provide that sense of community that I believe we all need to have. They can help you build your motivation. They can help you cope with urges, develop a balanced lifestyle, manage your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And this is the perfect approach for people who prefer a more science-based, more self-directed approach versus a faith-based one. And of course, there are faith-based recoveries, just like the name suggests, which incorporates either religious or spiritual beliefs. And you'll find things like prayer, spiritual counseling, support from trusted faith-based sources, and also from faith-based communities. And sometimes they'll be held in faith-focused residential treatment programs. So this is a really good fit for anyone who is, very spiritual, because that spirituality is a core part of their identity. And like I said, the cool thing is all of these recovery approaches are just, you can do what works for you. And then if you find, like I did, I took marriage counseling up until I needed to be on my own. And then I did AA and then moved from there to a secular thing. So you just do what works for you. There's just no one size fits all. This is your journey, so you travel it on your terms, right? Just because I no longer resonated with the 12 steps doesn't mean I didn't learn a ton from them, because I did. I learned a framework from them. I learned emotional sobriety from them. I had an amazing sponsor. So, I have no animosity from them. I just, I moved on. So anyway, okay. Speaking of moving on, let me see, how long are we at? We are going to actually cut this one short because the next part is going to be a little bit longer. We're going to talk about day 1 and some of the things that you'll need to be aware of on your journey. So, if you have any questions or you'd like some free downloadable worksheets, please visit my website, bookendsofrecovery.com. This is Laura wishing you a beautiful day because you deserve it. And look for part 2 of this podcast on my timeline in just a few minutes.